Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's Matty here from Chill TCG. So today was the Sunday Open ran by Atlas Collectibles. It was a really good tournament, really big tournament, over 200 players, and we actually saw an Orbeetle list make it into top 8. The man playing the list, or woman, I'm not sure exactly, but his name was Apsyy, and his Orbeetle list was really cool. It was just a straight Orbeetle list, plenty of switching options, not a whole lot to it. But it seemed really powerful, and he seemed to do really well in the tournament, so I recreated that list, and we're going to be checking it out here today. So, hope you guys enjoyed the video, and let's get into it. Alright, let's get into it. Apsyy's Orbeetle list. First and foremost, though, I just want to let you guys know that I did edit this deck just a little bit. So originally, if we take a look, this deck list was running a Wondrous Labyrinth on top of 2 Turffield Stadium, and it was running 2 U-Turn boards with no Big Charms. So what I did was I took out a U-Turn board, took out Wondrous Labyrinth, and I put in 2 Big Charms. That was just a personal preference. But if you go and look at Apsyy's list that he was playing in the Atlas Collectibles Sunday Open tournament this past Sunday, he was running 2 U-Turn boards with Wondrous Labyrinth. But anyway, we're going to go into my version of the deck list. Again, it's just a minor change. If you prefer to run it the way that he was running it, then by all means, go ahead and run it. The only reason I took out Wondrous Labyrinth was because there's so many hammers right now in the format, and we're really only manually attaching to our Orbeetles every turn. To me, personally, I feel like you want to get those energies on at least 2 Orbeetles, and then maybe even beginning setting up a third, and putting 3 energies onto one of your Orbeetles, I guess, could be good to stop your opponent from attacking you for one round, but at the same vein, you know, it just, with hammers, it just didn't really seem to be that good of an idea. But either way, let's take a look at the deck list. So getting into the Pokemon count, we run 2 Snorlax from Vivid Voltage. Now we run this Pokemon pretty much only for its ability there. Gorman Dies, I think is how you say that. This ability is really cool. So once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may draw cards until you have 7 cards in your hand. Now this is going to be a really good card to start your game with. Of course, we can't attack with Orbeetle on our first turn, and with this deck we want to go first, right? Going first is really good because we can get that attachment right off the gate, get an early setup on our Orbeetles. We can have the Snorlax in the active spot, and we can end our turn with Gorman Dies and draw cards until we have 7 in our hand. This is really good. To me, this is the best way to play this deck, especially since, you know, we're not really going to be able to attack until second turn where we attach that second energy. So we want to set up Orbeetle as quickly as possible, and you know, it just seems to be the better way to play it. So Snorlax, a great starter Pokemon. We have 4 Orbeetle Vs, or we're not really using Orbeetle V to attack, really. We're just using it to get into our Orbeetle VMAX. Plus, this thing has 180 HP, so it can get one-shotted by just so many Pokemon right now in the format. It's got a retreat cost of 1, just like the VMAX. I guess we can take a look at the attacks, though. So for Strafe, for 1 Grass Energy, 20 damage, you may switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. This can be really good, although, again, we want to end our turn with the Snorlax, right? So not super useful, but I guess if you need to get out of there during your opponent's next turn, then you can use this. Maybe go into a Pokédoll, because we are running Pokédolls. And then we have Mysterious Wave for a Grass and a Colorless. 50 damage and does 30 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So kind of a lesser version of Orbeetle VMAX's attack, but still not a bad attack really at all. Can finish off some KOs if you just somehow can't find an Orbeetle VMAX. Now, the star of the show, so we're running a 4-4 lineup of Orbeetle and Orbeetle VMAX. Now, Orbeetle VMAX, it's only got 310 HP, but it does have a retreat cost of 1. Now, being a Grass-type Pokemon, being weak to Fire, can be really difficult right now in the format with all those Welder decks, things like Centiskorch, and just, you know, really any other Welder decks that could be out there, any other Fire decks that could be out there. But, you know, if you look at the attack cost, we'll get to the ability in a minute. This attack cost has a Grass Energy and a Colorless Energy. So we are running the new Aromatic Grass Energy, I believe it's called, which removes all status conditions from this Pokemon. And then we also run Weakness Guard Energy for that Colorless attack cost, which, of course, gets rid of your weakness. So really kind of bolsters Orbeetle's defenses up quite a bit. Protects it from things like Poison Eternatus. We'll see that in the video, actually, the match that we're going to be looking at after this. And the Weakness Guard Energy, of course, is just really good against any matchup that, you know, might hit for weakness on you. On top of the Weakness Guard Energy, we're also running a few Capture Energies. You know, you can run Capture Energy to find more Orbeetle Vs or perhaps find the Snorlax. So Capture Energy can also be a really good card in this deck. But look at the ability. So Eerie Beam, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may put 1 damage counter on each of your opponent's Pokemon. Now, you need to realize that if you have 2 or 3 Orbeetles on your board, right, if you have them out on your bench or in your active spot, each Orbeetle can use that ability once per turn. So that's why in this deck we're focusing on so much on, switching around. We have so many different switching cards and ways to switch around our Orbeetles, because we want to be able to go into 2, maybe 3 Orbeetles every turn and use Eerie Beam 2 or 3 times every turn. Pretty much putting 2 or 3 damage counters on all of your opponent's Pokemon while also hitting them consistently for that G-Max wave. You can really guarantee a lot of 2-hit KOs on pretty much every Pokemon in the format right now. So Orbeetle VMAX, it's a fantastic Pokemon. 310 HP is not crazy, but if you're not getting hit for weakness, then you're pretty much, again, living any one hit. So Orbeetle VMAX is a really consistent 2-hit KO Pokemon and can oftentimes live 2 hits with the, the special energies that we have attached to it. So that's the Pokemon count. Getting into some of the Pokemon search that we have, there's not a whole lot. We have 2 Evolution Incense to find our Orbeetle VMAXs, and we also have 2 Turffield Stadium to find our Orbeetle VMAXs. So that is a total of 4 different ways to find our VMAX Pokemon. And then we have 4 Quick Balls to find those basics, as well as having, 3 Capture Energies. So that is 7 different ways to find our 6 basic Pokemon. Makes sense, right? The math works out. This seems to be a good amount of ways to find Pokemon in this deck, considering that we are running a lot of supporters, and we aren't running a whole lot of draw support on top of, other than the Snorlax and the Bird Keepers and Marnies and stuff like that. But this is, that's how we're going to be finding our Pokemon. Now, let's move on. So we're just going to be skipping ahead a little bit, going order of the type of trainer cards that they are. So next up is going to be all of our switching options. Oops, I got logged out. Oh no. Let me log back in. Why did it log me out? What the heck? All right. We'll wait for this to load. Awkward pause. Okay, we're back. I don't know why I got logged out automatically. I wasn't even online for that long. Anyway. Okay, getting on to the switching options. We have plenty of switching options in our deck, so let's go through it. We have 4 Lillie's Pokédoll. The best pivot card in the game. Can also be really good for stalling, which, of course, is never really a bad strategy when we're manually attaching to all of our Pokemon. Excuse me. So we run 4 Lillie's Pokédoll. This helps us, and it pairs really well with things like Switch, pairs really well with things like Bird Keeper, and pairs really well with things like U-Turn Board. All good switching options. And we also are running Mallow Lana. Now, Mallow Lana, you get to switch and heal 120 from your Pokemon if you discard 2 cards in your hand. Now, the healing is really good, but the switching effect, of course, is really good as well in this deck. It just makes sense to be running Mallow Lana. Switch cards, of course, this deck is built heavily around switching around your Orbeetles, so why wouldn't you be running 4 switch cards? Just makes total sense. And then for Bird Keepers, this is a great card that also works really well with this deck. You just get to switch your Pokemon and then also draw 3 cards. So honestly, if you're not using Marnie and you're not using things like Mallow Lana, then you want a Bird Keeper every turn, right? If you can help it, Bird Keeper is not only going to help you get that extra damage on the board, it's going to draw you some more cards, and it's just a really good card to run in this deck. And then lastly, and of course, the Mallow Lana for the healing and the switching effect. So plenty of different ways to switch. U-Turn Board makes total sense. Again, I took one of these out because it has that recyclable effect to it. So if this card gets discarded, it just goes back into your hand. Kind of makes it so you don't really need more than one. You can use it if your Pokemon gets knocked out. The Big Charm seem really useful. Bring your Orbeetle up to 340 HP and can actually get you outside of that 2-hit KO range if you're also using Mallow Lana. So I prefer, this tool card lineup instead of just 2 U-Turn boards. But if you want to run 2 U-Turn boards, then go ahead and do that. So that's it for the switching options. Oh, sorry. So we're not running any tag team Pokemon in this deck, but we are running a Tag Call, and this is because we're running a bunch of tag team supporter cards. We're not running Pokégear, and we are running one Pokégear. Of course, I'm just spacing completely. So in terms of our supporter search, we have 3 different ways to search out supporters because we have a ton of supporters in this deck. We have 4, 6, 7, 10. We have 15 supporters in this deck that we're running. So being able to search out the supporter that you need is definitely really important. So we run one Pokégear to find things like, your Bird Keeper, Boss's Orders, Marnie. And then we're running Tag Call to find things like, the Cynthia Caitlin, Guzma Hala, and the Mallow Lana. So that's how we're going to be searching out our supporters since we are running a large amount of them in the deck. We run one Tool Scrapper. So Tool Scrapper, Apsyy was running it in his list. I haven't taken it out. I figure it's in there for a reason, and it does come in clutch sometimes. This deck is a bit kind of disruptive, but it's not too disruptive in terms of its strategy. We are running 2 Reset Stamps, so these 2 cards go along really well in terms of this deck with the Marnies. But Apsyy was running one Tool Scrapper, and I'm not going to complain because Apsyy did have a great run in the tournament. So, I'm sure there's a good reason for it. 2 Reset Stamp. I think every deck in the format right now should be running at least 1 Reset Stamp. If you run 2, it's just what Apsyy was doing, so I agree with it. Next up, what do we got? Okay, so 2 Boss's Orders, again, kind of like Reset Stamp, a card that should be run in most decks right now in the format. Orbeetle, again, with that damage spread, you're going to want to gust into your opponent's bench Pokemon to finish off some KOs, especially if you hit them once and they retreated back out and they have a lot of damage on them. Then Boss's Orders is going to help you hunt down those attacked, those damaged Pokemon already to finish off some KOs. So we run 2 Boss's Orders. We run a Cynthia and Caitlin. Again, I'm not sure exactly why we run Cynthia and Caitlin, probably to get some of these different supporters back since we are running so many different kinds. Cynthia and Caitlin can be a great way to get those supporters back if you need to, and also, helps you draw some cards as well. So one Cynthia and Caitlin works well with that Tag Call engine as well, so I guess Apsyy probably thought, why not? 3 Guzma Hala. Guzma Hala is actually a really great card in this deck specifically. We get to search your deck for a Stadium card and a Tool card and a Special Energy card if we discard 2 cards from our hand, and if we look, almost all of our energy are special energies. We have 3 Tool cards and we have 2 stadiums, so Guzma Hala makes just a whole lot of sense to be put into this deck, especially when going with this Tag Call engine. I think this is a really efficient supporter draw engine, card search engine, whatever you want to call it, to run in this deck, and I highly agree with it. 3 Marnies. Again, we don't really want to be discarding a lot of cards in this deck. That's because we have plenty of different cards, so whenever you do come across like a weakness guard energy or like a reset stamp or anything like that, you don't want to discard it. You want to maybe save it for later in the game. So Marnie's really good for that, and it also disrupts your opponent's hand, which of course is really important in matchups like Blacephalon or Eternatus, really a lot of different matchups in general. Marnie can be really useful as well. So like I said, moving on to the tool cards, I think we already covered this. The Big Charm works really well with Mallow Lana, gets you outside of that 2-hit KO range, so they have to attack you 3 times. That can be really clutch in matchups. And then U-Turn Board, again, all of our Orbeetles have a retreat cost of 1, so U-Turn Board just makes more sense than Air Balloon. We only run 1. I only run 1 because, again, you get it back if it gets discarded, so definitely not a big deal. Moving on to the energies now, let's take a look and focus on these energy cards. So we're running 5 grass energies in total, 5 grass type energies, and then we're running 5 colorless type energies. Makes sense. 10 energies in total. Our Orbeetles take a grass and a colorless, so the math checks out again. Makes total sense. This new aromatic energy, if we're just manually attaching our grass energies, it doesn't make sense not to just run these because they do have an extra benefit. So as long as this is attached to a grass type Pokemon, you recover from all special conditions, and you cannot be affected by special conditions. Now, one thing I do want to note that this is going to be really useful against things like perhaps maybe like a Vigavolt lock, which focuses on like paralysis or confusion with like Yellhorn. That sees a little bit of play, I guess, on the ladder. One big one is like Pikarom, or even that new electric Mewtwo, Lightning Mewtwo deck list. The Raichu tag team. That paralysis can be really deadly, and it can be really hard to get around. We do run a lot of switching options, but anyway, that paralysis can be really deadly, and those matchups can be really annoying to deal with. But I think lastly, and the most important one, is the Poison Eternatus matchup. Now, Poison Eternatus relies on doing that extra poison damage to get you into that 1-hit KO range. Now, Aromatic Energy nullifies that completely. It cannot poison you, it cannot do extra damage, so it will consistently be hitting you for 270, which effectively is a 2-hit KO on Orbeetle VMAX. Now, this is important because with your damage pings and with your attack on Orbeetle VMAX, you will be 2-hit KOing Eternatus VMAX as well, while also spreading damage across its entire board, which could be having up to 8 Pokemon on it. So I think Orbeetle wins that Poison Eternatus matchup, which is crazy considering that I think Poison Eternatus is one of the most powerful decks right now in the format. Next up for energy, we're running 3 Capture Energies and 2 Weakness Guard Energy. I think you could be running 2 and 3, sort of depending on which one you value more often. I guess Apsyy kind of thought that he didn't really need more than 2 Weakness Guard Energies, and he prioritized finding his basic Pokemon above removing his weakness from his Orbeetle VMAXs. But again, you can switch those around. I think it wouldn't, change this deck a whole lot personally. But I didn't change it. I left it how it was. So 3 Capture Energies, you attach it to an Orbeetle VMAX or an Orbeetle V, and then you get to just find another Orbeetle V or a Snorlax. Whatever basic Pokemon is in your deck can be really good just to sort of populate your bench with Orbeetles or Snorlax, whatever it might be that you need on your bench. So 3 Capture Energies, 2 Weakness Guard Energies to remove that pesky fire weakness, which, can lose you games a lot of times. Also, they just both fit really well in to Orbeetle VMAX because of the fact that you have a basic energy in your attack cost, or a colorless energy. And then lastly, because we can only run 4 Aromatic Energies, we're running just a normal grass energy because, there's no other type of grass energy to be running, so that makes total sense. Anyway, though, that's going to be the deck list, or at least pretty much the deck list that Apsyy was running in the tournament. It's based around his deck list. Again, I only changed like one card in the deck, so don't knock me for that. I'm not calling it my own. It is very much Apsyy's list. I just tweaked it a little bit. From the matches I played on the ladder, it seemed to be the better way to go. But let me know what you guys think. What would you change about this deck list? What would you include? What would you take out? Let me know if you've played any games with this Orbeetle list. Then let me know how those games went. Tonight is the Hexters number 7, I think, season 3, whatever season they might be on. But the tournament is tonight. It's Monday as I record this, and I believe there is 5 Orbeetles in the tournament. So let's see maybe how those Orbeetles do. Let's see if we can. We'll see if any other Orbeetles are running a similar deck list or a different type deck list than the one that Apsyy was running at the Sunday Open. So that's going to be it for the deck list, guys. Now, I did record a video, or I recorded a match on the ladder of me playing against an Eternatus VMAX, a poison variant, and it went really well for us playing Orbeetle VMAX. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that matchup. All right, let's get into it. Let's watch this match that I played on the ladder against a poison Eternatus matchup against Fiberglass Ghost. Not somebody that I know personally, again, just sort of a random opponent online. Now, by no means did I play this matchup perfectly. By no means am I better than Apsyy, I guess, or know how to play the deck better. But I did manage to get a nice win here, and I included this matchup in the video personally, really just because I thought that this matchup was important for people to realize, and kind of showed a lot of benefit for this Orbeetle list, especially against one of the best and I think one of the most powerful decks right now in the format. So I'm going to go ahead and start off the game with an Orbeetle V in the active spot. Didn't start the game with that Snorlax, but not a big deal. We do have U-Turn Board in hand with a Quick Ball, so we'll see what I decide to do going into our turn here. So this is at this point I'm realizing, okay, so it's Poison Eternatus, not that bad. I'm going to prioritize probably finding my aromatic energies. Shout out to Mark there, giving him his code for the bubble matches for the Invitational coming up in a few weeks. I think at the same time I was talking with my wife. She was playing Uno with her brother and sister, like online or something. So I do have a couple Poké dolls. So in my head, I'm like, well, we should get those out for sure. We don't want to keep this Orbeetle V in the active spot. So at the worst comes to worst, we'll leave a Poké doll in the active spot. I do get the U-Turn Board and put the second Poké doll on the bench. Now I think at this point I'm thinking, well, we'll search a deck, maybe find a supporter. We find a second Bird Keeper, which, will have some use. We're going first, but next turn maybe we can do some sort of, cheesy little Bird Keeper switches. At the same time, though, I do not have any energy to attach this turn, which is a little unfortunate. I get rid of that Reset Stamp because it doesn't tend to be a big deal against things like Eternatus VMAX. So I'm going to go ahead and I just retreat into that Snorlax and Gormantize to draw 4 more cards. Again, no manually attachment this turn, can be kind of unfortunate, but we do find that aromatic energy, which, again, is going to be really important in this matchup. So very good. Very good. And we also do find that Orbeetle VMAX to evolve into our Orbeetle V this coming turn. We see here, he Pokécoms away the Toxicroak to grab that Eternatus V. Important to set these things up early in the game. For me, I'm not too upset about him sort of getting his board state set up early on. I know that it doesn't take too long. It only takes 2 turns for me to set up my board state. So in that vein, right, I'm not too worried about how fast he's setting up. At this point, I'm like, well, he's got 2 cards in hand. One of them is definitely a Crobat because I'm playing Eternatus VMAX. That's just how it goes. And I think he's drawing 5 more cards off that. And, at this point, I'm like, well, worst comes to worst, I guess he could end his turn with Power Accelerator. He goes in Great Balls here. Let's see what he pulls. He does pull another Eternatus V, which will be good, again, to Power Accelerator onto. And then he gets the Marnie. Now, at this point, I'm like, that's kind of unfortunate. Our hand was looking pretty decent. Not extraordinary, but pretty decent. Would have liked to have a lot of those cards coming next turn. And then my new hand, again, is also pretty unfortunate. But we do have Guzma Hala, which is not bad at all. But no energy right now and no way to evolve into that Orbeetle VMAX, so definitely unfortunate for sure. The Quick Ball, I'm like, well, I could Quick Ball for another Orbeetle V. I already have one Snorlax in the active spot, so I'm going to go ahead and say, well, maybe not. But Guzma Hala, super clutch. I find the Big Charm, I find the Turffield Stadium, and the Aromatic Energy, all 3 cards that I really, really, really wanted to have this turn. So definitely really good to see. I put that Big Charm on the other Orbeetle V, but I do attach the energy to the one with the the U-Turn board, and I evolve into that one as well because I figure, well, if he has the aromatic energy onto it, he's not going to get one hit KO'd, so I don't really need to focus in putting the energy on the one with the Big Charm. And then I end my turn with Gormandize again. A Snorlax, it's a really clutch card. I went from 1 card in my hand to 7, so that just kind of gives you an idea of how powerful Snorlax can be, especially when you're playing a deck like this that doesn't always have things like Dedenne, right, or Crobat, which you might not be running. Snorlax is a really good option for that. Now, at this point, I do see that he's running Crushing Hammers. I'm like, oh, snap, that's not very good. This aromatic energy is not going to survive very long, but he does get a Tails on that Hammers. Now, again, if you're playing an opponent with Hammers, sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. This matchup, I think I ended up getting pretty lucky. I think he got like 2 or 3 Tails on Hammers, so definitely very fortunate for me. He does get the second energy on the Eternatus VMAX, on the V, but doesn't find the VMAX and has to end his turn with Power Accelerator. Hits that Snorlax for 30. I'm like, well, who cares? I have plenty of switching options in hand. I have a second energy, second Orbeetle VMAX, so I am cruising right now. I am loving life. Right now, I decide to put the capture energy onto Orbeetle VMAX so I can find that third Orbeetle V. I'm like, cool, we're doing good right now. We get the Orbeetle VMAX set up, and we have 2 different ways to switch, and now we have 2 Orbeetle VMAXs, so we can probably get a couple of different, eerie beams out this turn, which could be really nice. I think I misplay here, which I do, yes, so I switch into Orbeetle VMAX and then ping. Actually, well, I guess it doesn't really matter because this turn I'll just end up Bird Keepering on to the other Orbeetle VMAX. I think I forgot that I did that. I thought I did something incorrect there, but I guess that was fine. It was an okay play. Now I just go ahead and grab that other Orbeetle VMAX because I'm like, well, why not? Shuffle the deck, thin it out a little bit. I'm gonna hit him with the second Eerie Beam. Now we see all those beautiful, satisfying damage counters get placed everywhere, and then I'll pop them off for 150. Unfortunately, things like Eternatus are never going to have more than 2 energy on any of their Eternatus Pokemon, so the most we're going to be hitting for an attack is 150, but that's fine because if we are able to get 2 pings off every turn, then that, on top of the 2 150s, then that adds up to 340, and that's just 2-hit KOing Eternatus VMAX, and he's got a 2-hit KO me as well. So we're setting up, I think, a little bit more fortunate in terms of our draws here. We had a pretty good starting hand. His starting hand didn't really seem that great. He's on turn 3 now. He discarded 2 Eternatus Vs and 1 Eternatus VMAX, but he does find one. So at this point, he's getting into his board state. Whiffs the second Hammers, which again, like all I can say is that it was super, super lucky. But I don't know if it really would have mattered too much. This turn, I think it actually might have, because I don't know if this turn he finds the Garbodor. If he finds the Garbodor this turn, then that Hammer definitely mattered. So he goes into the second Eternatus VMAX. Yep, so that's the one with damage. So we switched into the one that didn't. Now, I don't have Boss's Orders in hand, and right now I'm kind of hoping that at some point I will have Boss's Orders in hand, but, for now, I guess just attacking this active Eternatus V is not a big deal. Now, he hits me for 210. At this point, I'm like, well, I'm going to get knocked out next turn unless I can somehow, set up, these other Orbeetle VMAXs. I go ahead and I hit him with Eerie Beam. Again, look at all those satisfying damage counters. Now that other Eternatus VMAX is in KO range, but I do not have Boss's Orders in hand, so that can be a little bit unfortunate. I put the Weakness Guard energy on just because I'm like, why not? I probably, in retrospect, should have attached the aromatic energy to him. That was a misplay on my part, but it all worked out. I just Turffield Stadium because I'm like, why not? Just shuffle my deck a million times. But I do have Tag Call, so I'm able to find Mallow Lana. Now this is a really good switching option for me. So now I will be able to Eerie Beam twice and then probably end my turn by going into the Pokédoll, because right now I'm really hoping that, and I discard the other Orbeetle VMAX. At this point, I'm like, well, I'm probably not going to end up setting up a fourth one here. My board state's looking pretty fine. Right now, I made that gamble. I was like, well, I hope he doesn't have Boss's Orders. That's really going to make the difference here. So I leave the Pokédoll in the active spot instead of going into the other Orbeetle VMAX. I'm not sure which one would have been better. Either way, if he had Boss's Orders, then my other Orbeetle VMAX would have been knocked out. So, you got to take that gamble. He does, of course, have Crobat in hand. Draws 3 more cards. I'm like, oof, that was definitely a Boss's Orders. Well, he does find the Garbodor. And there is a Stadium in play, so he will be able to poison, but, as long as he doesn't boss me into that other Orbeetle VMAX, which doesn't have the aromatic energy on, then I should be fine. But at this point, ooh, and then there we see a research. I'm like, well, that's good. He doesn't have boss this turn, so I should be safe for one turn. There comes the Crushing Hammer. Boom, look at that, third miss. Sometimes you get lucky, man. Sometimes the dice just roll in your favor. And what can you say? What can you really say? And he's gonna have to end his turn with the attack on the Pokédoll, and this is exactly where I wanted to be personally. Now I have a second Mallow Lana in hand because I did grab 2 last time. Now I can Eerie Beam, attach a second Aromatic Energy to my benched Orbeetle VMAX, and I can Mallow Lana out again, fully heal my Orbeetle VMAX while getting some good damage off. And again, more pings. Now at this point, I think I decide to use Mallow Lana because I'm like, well, he probably has boss in hand this turn. So I'm just going to guarantee myself to not get knocked out. Discarding my entire hand, which is not ideal. At this point, I kind of figured like maybe the best play would be to go into Snorlax and end my turn. End my turn on Snorlax. But I decided to just get the damage off on a turn to VMAX. That way it's in range of getting KO'd next turn. And I think that this was the smart play. It kind of put him in a position where he didn't really have much to do. No matter what, I was going to, finish off his 2 Eternatus VMAXs before he finished off my Orbeetles. And, in my eyes, I felt like I had him kind of cornered here. I think this is the point. This game does end prematurely. I think he scoops right here, but kind of makes sense. Yeah, so I think he ends up scooping up here pretty soon. But again, I didn't end up closing this match out, but I think we had a pretty significant chance to win. Plus, he only has 3 cards in hand, so I think overall we probably would have gotten the win no matter what. I included this match, even though it was kind of short, just to give you guys an idea of how Orbeetle VMAX plays against one of the strongest decks in the format right now, and how it can actually be a really good counter against this deck specifically. So he actually ends his turn here by attacking. I'm like, well, that's fine. You're going to get KO next turn, so not a big deal. And he ends up just scooping, so I think he understands. But definitely a really good game. So again, that's sort of just an idea of how Orbeetle VMAX can be played. Probably not the best, the best example. Probably not the best game you've ever watched or seen play. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. That's going to wrap it up. I hope you guys enjoy Orbeetle VMAX. I really suggest that you guys go play the deck. It seems to be really powerful, really good. And right now, it's my favorite card from Vivid Voltage. But anyway, guys, that's going to wrap it up. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we'll see you guys next time.